I enjoy surfing early mornings. We call it dawn patrol, as we get some of the cleanest waves as the sun begins to rise. If you wait for midday or the evening, the waves are usually a lot more messy due to the wind and the tides moving. I usually surf alone, but on occasion there is another fellow surfer out in the water, which gives me a little more sense of security instead of surfing alone. Every time I'm alone, all I can think about is what's possibly below me, since the waters here are quite murky and you can't see past 1 foot below the surface water. There's local myths in my town of the fish people that lurk below the waters hunting the shallows for small fish, lobsters, and other sea life. I'm not very superstitious, so I don't believe these old myths. It's very cold here. The water temperature sits around 60 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. So we must use wetsuits to endure the cold waters. The wetsuit gets a bit heavy and can weigh you down a little, but without it we wouldn't be able to surf cold waters for more than 15 minutes at a time. With the wetsuit, I can stay out in the ocean for hours. I'm still fairly new at the whole sport of surfing and love any bits of advice other more experienced surfers give me. It was an early morning and I was out surfing alone. A major rain had hit our town the night before, so there was plenty of floating objects in the waves that got washed in by the local storm water. The other surfer had warned me that I shouldn't be surfing here alone, since the beach is known for large sharks that migrate into our area to reproduce. I've never seen a shark, and to be honest, I'm not really scared of sharks since I've come to the conclusion that I'm in their home when I decide to surf. The morning was quite foggy, as I was riding some super fun small waves that had been produced by the local storms out in the ocean. The waves here are generally on the smaller side and tend to the beginner surfers, as the wave is not powerful enough for the more advanced surfers. This morning there were more guys than the regular. I could count around a dozen guys in the water since the waves are better than usual, which tends to drag out all the local surfers. I was sitting on my board with my legs dangling below the murky waters as I waited for the next set of waves to roll in. It had been about 5 minutes since the last set of waves. The waves don't come in non-stop, so you have to wait around for a few minutes until the next set arrives shore. The energy for the waves travel thousands of miles through the ocean until arriving on shore, creating the small rolling waves us local surfers live for. I could feel my feet beginning to go numb from the cold water. After about 2 hours of surfing, my feet usually go completely numb and I can no longer hold my balance while surfing, so I exit the beach and warm up. It was right around that time. I was feeling tired and was ready to exit the ocean and head towards shore to warm up and drink a hot coffee. I figured I would wait for the next set of waves and ride one into the sand. As I sat there waiting on my board, I felt something rub the bottom of my foot that dangled into the waters below. I instantly freaked out and lifted my leg out of the water. At that moment I noticed blood covering the top of my board. I was bleeding from my foot and I hadn't even noticed when or how I got the cut. There was a large gash on the bottom of my foot, as I figured I needed to get back to shore to clean it up before it gets infected. I sat there waiting for the next set of waves when I feel something wrap around my ankle and just pull me down. It was something extremely strong as it dragged me below the ocean surface, pulling me straight off my surfboard. I began to panic. I instantly thought I was being attacked by a shark as I began reaching down towards my ankles to feel what was pulling me down. I really needed to get loose from whatever was holding me underwater as I began to run out of oxygen. When you panic underwater, you tend to lose your breath much faster, since panicking is the worst thing you can do when holding your breath. I felt it dragging me across the water. As I reached down to my ankle, I could tell this wasn't a shark, since I could feel any pain and nothing was biting me, but rather grabbing me. As I finally reached down to my ankle, I could feel a hand, which seemed like a human hand wrapped around my ankle. I could feel the fingers squeeze my ankle as it dragged me underwater effortlessly. As I reached down and grabbed its fingers, it let me go. I surfaced to the top of the water rather quickly as my wetsuit helped me float back up while I gasped for air. I thought I was about to die as I could no longer hold my breath and felt like I was going to black out. The other surfers saw me get dragged under and began paddling towards me as I surfaced, asking if I was okay, wondering what happened. In a state of panic, I told him something grabbed me from below and was dragging me below the surface, which felt like it had the strength of a machine. I told him it wasn't a shark, as I felt a hand grab me by the ankle. The surfer who was asking me what happened was a regular surfer that lived in the area his entire life. His eyes opened. He told me to paddle to shore as I saw I was bleeding from my foot. He followed me on shore, trying to calm me down since I was in a state of shock. As we got on shore, I slowly began to relax, knowing I was safe on land, and that's when the man explained to me. There's an old tale of the water humans that some people know as mermaids. They have been known to disappear surfers, dragging them below the ocean surface. 100% of the cases of missing surfers have been said to be shark encounters, but I know the truth about this bay, and I can assure you it's not sharks. I had no bite marks on my foot, and had one slit underneath my foot that was still bleeding. My blood must have attracted whatever creature dragged me down. I don't know if I wanted me dead or was attracted to the blood from my foot. All I can say is I'll never surf here alone again. This encounter has made me open my eyes, and I now have a larger respect for whatever lurks below the surface. I was on a spearfishing trip with a group of friends. We had arrived in Morocco last week as we prepared for the yearly competition of shore diving. There's 50 slots available with a grand prize of $20,000 for whoever spears the largest fish using a spear gun. I'm also a competitive swimmer and swim large distances in the open oceans back home. I've never had any bad experiences swimming in the ocean, so I was never scared to be out there alone, until I had an unexplained encounter swimming the ocean waters of Morocco. There are unexplained creatures lurking below the ocean surface in Morocco that I was never warned about. It was the early morning of the fishing competition. We all gathered before sunrise as we checked in with the local competition staff as we prepared to begin spearfishing as soon as the sun rises. Some men had boats and were driving to the local reefs away from other spear fishermen, while most of the guys just swam from shore looking for their spots to capture the largest fish for a chance at the 20,000 grand prize. I have been here several times in the past years to compete in this competition, so I was already familiar with the area and where I wanted to spearfish. As a competitive swimmer, I had a head start on the rest of the crew. I paced myself and I began swimming around the bend, which had no access besides hiking down a straight cliff or swimming about 1 mile to this area. It took me about 30 minutes to finally arrive at my fishing area, since I was hauling all my fishing gear, including my spear gun and a rope with a floating flag above so I can be spotted by passing boats. I was in the area alone. All I could hear are the sounds of rocks banging against each other underwater as the waves hit the shore of the beach. I was in position and had to descend 40 feet below the surface as I sit patiently for a large fish to swim by so I can take my shot and hope to bag the largest fish in the competition. The visibility is around 20 feet today, so the water was quite clear. I could see 20 feet into the distance underwater as I swam towards the bottom to look for a good hiding spot. I slowly descended and found a great spot to hide underwater, which was a small crevice between two large boulders. I can hold my breath for upwards of 3 minutes per dive as long as I focus on staying calm. I could see the shadow of a large fish swimming around just outside my visibility. I tried to focus but couldn't tell what it was. Every few minutes it would swim by extremely fast, as if it knew I was there, but I still couldn't see it clearly. I began swimming around in an awkward pattern that usually isn't the movement of any local fish in the area. Although there are some large fish here, I have never seen something this large. It must have been the size of a dolphin or a small shark. A few minutes had passed and I needed to surface. I left my hiding spot and began slowly paddling my feet as I could see the surface water above as the sun beamed off the top of the water. I made it to the top and took a deep breath. I was floating for about 2 minutes, meanwhile I regulated my breathing, preparing myself for the next dive down. As I dived down, I could see something sitting in the same spot I was just hiding in. It was a rather large shadow, as I thought it must have been one of the largest fish I've seen in this area. I slowly swam head down, pointing my spear gun in front of me so I can be ready to take a shot on the large fish. As I got within 15 feet of the bottom, I could see the creature sitting in my hiding spot. This wasn't a fish, and I had no idea what it was. It had the body of a manatee, but had a human head with hair, with the face of a fish. I stood there pointing my spear gun right at its head, not knowing what I was staring at. I thought to myself, this must be one of those military bioengineered creatures I've heard of in conspiracy books. They say the military crossbreeds human genes with sea animals, creating mysterious creatures, releasing them in the ocean to thrive. I figured this is what I was looking at, as I didn't have any other explanation as to what it was, and never had seen such creature in my life. At that moment it turned around and looked at me. I think I caught it by surprise, as the moment it looked at me, it went into a defensive position, almost as if it wanted to charge me. I slowly backed up, still pointing my spear gun at the large creature that sat below 40 feet on the ocean floor. I decided to head back to base. This competition was not worth of my life, and this creature didn't seem to be friendly, whatever it was. I surfaced to the top of the water. As I looked below the surface, I could see the creature pacing me. It was swimming below me around 20 feet in circles. I was about half a mile from shore and a few miles away from the competition starting point. I began swimming back to base as the creature continued to pace me below the water surface. I had no other defense besides swimming away as I pointed my gun below the water surface in hopes I could fight off this creature if it becomes aggressive. The creature followed me the entire way back until I exited shore. I had a sigh of relief the moment my feet touched the sand, knowing I wasn't going to be eaten alive by some mysterious inbred ocean creature. Apparently, the military has an offshore base in the area that has been in operation since the 1980s. It is protected by security and nobody is allowed within a 20-mile perimeter of the military base. I've come to the conclusion they are testing on human genes and mixing them with other creatures to produce unexplained new species. There is no official explanation to what I encountered out in the Morocco ocean waters, but I'll never take part in this competition again.